about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't forget, tomorrow is tax day. So I gave you guys a lot of tips on medical tax deductions. I'll review some of those for you later. But I honestly, I pay too much in taxes as far as I'm concerned. So not definitely a happy week, but hopefully some of you guys could get some money back with some of the advice I give you. But the first thing I want to talk about today is, as AI is starting to take hold and people are incorporating AI into their industries, medicine is, of course, going to be at the forefront of that. Using AI to help interpret mammograms and radiological testing and imaging and lab tests. It's just something that patients want, doctors want, to the point where we're going to be basically just pushed out of our own field. But one new AI program that is being touted right now is where AI listens to you and the doctor speak. Then it transcribes everything and puts it into the chart. And the reason why this is something, still finishing breakfast. The reason why this is something that seems to be attractive to medical professionals is because it's supposed to kind of minimize burnout. You know, when you have to document everything anybody says, I could type quickly, but some people can't type quickly. Or if they have to keep looking down at the chart and not looking at you because they're so busy typing. See, for me, I could just take notes. I loved paper charts. I really miss paper charts where I could sit there and scribble, as we talk. And I'd be like, oh, really, really? I could write it down. Right? And then, if nobody could read my handwriting, well, that's on them. But because of handwriting issues and because of documentation issues, and in order to bill, you have to have X amount of things on your note, software companies exploded. And now, with electronic medical records, everything has to be digitalized. But now we're taking it one step further where there is an active entity listening. It doesn't necessarily mean it's another human, but it's AI. So while you're, answering some very vulnerable questions to your doctor, all right, that is being digitally captured and technologically captured. And I wonder if patients are going to start being more kind of fidgety with that, or if they're going to be fine. The one thing we have noticed is the loss of privacy that you had at one time with the doctor. You would go in, the doctor would examine you. It would just be them in the room. You'd get the exam, they'd write it down, and you would move on with your life. Well, now, because of cases of assault or cases of accused assault, now there has to be somebody else in the room. So now there's a chaperone. So now there's an audience in the room. Then with telemedicine, you're now using tech to explain your issues, whether it's a genital rash, an STD, depression, etc. And people have been very fine with, what? I don't need to see a doctor and have a private conversation. I don't mind if tech is involved. And I'm kind of blown away at how people are not hesitant on technology having their personal information. But it's just something we surrendered ourselves to because we want the ease, we want the comfort, and that's just what society is demanding right now. This AI program, let me see if I have the name for it. Let me see. Oh, it's called Nabla. It begins transcribing the doctor's conversation with the patient. It supports multiple languages, and after the visit, it generates a summary that can be added to the patient's medical record. Now, they say, according to the Association of American Medical Colleges, the U.S. is facing a projected shortage of 57,000 to 72,000 physicians this year. Why? Because of increased workloads, burnout. And but when you get done with the documenting, you actually spend more time documenting and doing administrative BS and prior auths than actually spending time with the patient. So I'm mixed on this because I really do think we need to minimize I'm looking down at my chart, or I'm trying to type, or I'm trying to hit the right button. You really want somebody to just kind of sit, have that eye contact, hold your hand, and, I guess pick up on nuances. Remember, I had that patient that came in, new patient needing a refill of her Prozac. And while she's talking to me, I'm just looking at her. I'm like, your neck. I think your thyroid's enlarged. Well, we end up sending her for an ultrasound, then a biopsy. She had thyroid cancer. While she was being worked up for thyroid cancer, we ran some blood work. She ended up having blood cancer as well. Now, thank God she, lived through that and was able to combat it. But she only came in for a Prozac prescription refill. And so this is what I'm concerned about with tech is people are calling up telemedicine for one thing. It's over the phone and nobody's going, something doesn't look right. I had a patient that came in. He was a child of two seniors that I was taking care of. And he goes, yeah, you take care of my mom and dad. I'm like, oh, well, glad to have you here. What's going on? Well, I need a Z-Pack because I have bronchitis. That was his chief complaint. I want a Z-Pack. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you're gray. I don't like your color. And I think there might be something wrong. Let me do, a blood test. And because I knew his family had diabetes, I did a finger stick because I wanted to know right away. He just looked kind of gray. And I didn't think bronchitis was his real diagnosis. Well, apparently on my sugar monitor, he was above the chart. He couldn't even register. His sugar was so high. He was going into diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA. And somebody online would have never picked up on that because they would have never seen his coloring. He just didn't look right. And so one thing AI will never be able to do is instinct. It might be able to make our work easier, but patients are demanding doctor-free zones where they could get what they want. And they think they could tell a computer what they want and the computer will give them what they want. And as much as I am a fan of telemedicine, and I think it has been life-changing, especially since COVID, giving people access to doctors, people are using it wrong. They're using it as their only medical outlet. And so when I ask people, look, do you have a primary care doctor? I want to make sure you're getting your physicals, your prostate checked, your mammograms, things like that. They go, no, you're our doctor. I go, but we're on the phone. We're not examining you. So AI definitely has a role, but boy, have we been surrendering our privacy. And this is another example of it. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So a few days back, remember Trump had written an executive order to reverse the BS we've had with shower heads. So apparently there was an order that was done, I believe, even before his first term, that limited the amount of water coming through a shower head. And so in this administration, he has now done an executive order for immediate end to water conservation standards that restrict the number of gallons per minute that flow into your shower head. Now, I'm kind of I agree with that. I'll tell you why. This also restricts the amount of gallons that can come through your dishwasher, washing machines, and toilets. Now, he had said when he was at the, in the Oval Office, how he likes to take care of his beautiful hair. He says, I have to stand in the shower for 15 minutes until it gets wet. And then he says, comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous. And so he says, what you do is you end up washing your hands 5 times longer. So it's the same water. And we're going to open it up so that people can live. So, this shower head sort of rule, it kind of seems trivial. But, I'm a big fan of our environment. And I think we seem to forget how important water is. And when we, shall we say, expand our electric vehicle mandate, where a car fire is almost impossible to extinguish. They say it takes an average of 10,000 gallons of water to extinguish an electric vehicle. My problem with this whole water discussion is there's hypocrisy. If you really want to save water, then why are we moving to electric vehicles when we know they're harder to extinguish? And again, I still theorize that one of the reasons why these Pacific Palisade neighborhoods had to just burn is because they had electric vehicles parked in their garage and there was no way to extinguish them. So it was easier to just let them burn out. And that's what oftentimes they do with electric vehicle fires. There's not enough water. So here we are trying to limit what comes into your shower. And, from a medical standpoint, I don't think we need to be showering multiple times a day. Our body makes oils. We have natural bacteria. And there has been some concern that we might be overbathing. But if we are going to bathe, it has to be a good bath. And oftentimes I have seen people where they still have soap and they didn't wash it off. And if the water pressure isn't there, now you're walking around with soap. And now you're walking around with skin issues. And I know it seems trivial, but it's not. And I like a good shower. And I think what people should do then is if they're really concerned about losing water, recycle it better. Now, I understand that we have this, wash your dishes a different way or, wash your car a different way or wash your, I get it. We have natural resources that we need to protect. But I think we're just being hypocritical. If you really want to save water, come up with better ways to recycle it. With the exception of the water being evaporated, it goes down the drain. Excuse me, what are we going to do with those drains? And drain water. Can we purify it, recycle it, clean it? Now, I personally do not want to shower with any water that came from my toilet. I don't know how you could get it as clean as it needs to be. But where does our water come from? Our water comes from lakes, streams, oceans. There's poop in that. I don't know if you've ever seen a whale poop, but it's a lot. So we're already using water that, is not sterile. They have to treat it anyway. So what's the difference between animal treatment or animal excrement or human? So I, as far as I'm concerned, I think the shower head thing was a good move. People are frustrated. If somebody wants to bathe, I use showers as therapy. And I hope you don't fault me for any water shortage. But when somebody has back pain or muscle pain, I tell them to go into the shower and take a hot shower. When somebody has difficulty sleeping, I tell them go into the shower. Take a hot shower. When somebody has depression, they're like, I'm in a bad mood. All right, go take a shower. Just see how it, and I shower twice a day. Not because I'm dirty. It just, I love the way it feels. And maybe that's why I'm always in a good mood. And so I think it's very, very therapeutic. And hopefully the water gets recycled. Hopefully, we're not wasting it. And I understand we do have to be careful. During the summer, I live in southern Nevada. So we live in a desert environment. And we do water restrict as it pertains to our landscaping. Most of our landscaping is desert landscaping and rocks. But we do like to have some vegetation. And there's a little bubbler system, which I think is appropriate. If you're going to water a plant, the plant doesn't need to be soaked. You could easily dribble some water. And just like when we drink water, we should be drinking water every hour, hydrating ourselves. We don't have to drink a whole bunch, but you should be taking sips of water, maybe every 15 minutes, a sip of water, depending on what your kidneys can handle and what your doctor recommends. So I like the idea of methodical, but not when it comes to the shower. With the toilet, I think we've all been in a situation where one flush doesn't cut it. If the flush is weak, it doesn't cut it. Now you have to flush again. Now you have to flush again. Well, when you add that additively, it's more. So, personally, I think we can, do a lot more for our environment, but we just have to be smart. One real hypocritical act that we spoke about on the show was when we were doing the COVID lockdowns and restrictions and change everything to disposable. It was like we didn't hear from the environmentalists at all. Right before COVID, it was you need to save the environment. Stop using plastic spoons. Stop using paper plates. Wash your dishes. Recycle, reuse, recycle. Don't idle in your car. And then what did we do with 2020? People sat in their car idling, waiting for their to-go order. They wore these masks, and look at the paper load those cost. And then when they discarded their masks, shouldn't they be in a biohazard bag? No, it was discarded all over the place. Getting caught in coral, birds were getting stuck in these masks. Then there was plastic everywhere. Plastic plexiglass, plastic plates, plastic spoons, plastic everything. Where were the environmentalists then? Aerosol spray. Well, we just had a customer, so now we're going to Lysol the hell out of everything. And I get people are worried about infectious disease. I'm a doctor. I get that. But boy, did we waste time on did we waste a lot of resources with our plastic, our paper. So when I go to a place that has a paper menu, I try not to get it dirty because I don't want to go through paper. I don't want to go through trees. But apparently all that thinking got shifted after COVID. So I still go into places where they will hand out a menu and then throw it out. It's like, what a waste of paper. But, the hypocrisy really bothers the hell out of me. And I think there's a better way to do things. And I understand that whichever president comes in will reverse some of the stupidity from the previous president. And that's what I think Trump is doing right now. But energy efficiency is something we could do where we don't necessarily have to screw people over. So, for example, we're going from gas to electric. They want us to go to electric stoves. And, well, what happens when you have no electricity? That's not really helpful. Okay, if you need to cook, if you have a power outage, you can at least cook with gas. Aren't we trying to be more versatile? Same thing with an electric vehicle. If you lose your phone, one of my friends lost his phone on a hike. He couldn't get into his car. And I think you're supposed to have an extra sort of key to get in. He didn't have that because he was hiking. All he had was his car keys. So here he is stranded in the desert, can't get into his car. Well, I understand fuel-injected cars run out of gas. They could overheat. But I just look at us becoming so vulnerable, especially as it pertains to electricity. We're coming into now a warmer season. For those of you that have not tried out or tested out your air conditioning, you better do it. because the worst time to realize your air conditioning is out is when it's 100 degrees outside. I was in Phoenix this weekend. It was 90 plus degrees. Thank God the air conditioning was working. But when people start their air conditioning, it's when they can't handle the heat. And if your air conditioning broke, then how are you going to find a repair person when everybody else is having the same problem? So we need to plan ahead. We need to be more versatile. We need to be more flexible. And we need to not have these stupid rules. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So a very common question I get has to do with CAT scans. And I love the CAT scan. I think a CT scan is one of the most brilliant things. Maybe it's because when I was in training, it was, the biggest, baddest test. MRIs had come out. I didn't get trained on MRIs as much as I got trained on CAT scans. And to be able to see the whole body and pick up tumors and save people's lives, I was like, wow, this is a godsend. I love the CAT scan. I love it, love it, love it. But CAT scans use radiation in order to address and see what you have. And so there's been a lot of debate since our use of CAT scans on if they could cause harm based on the radiation. They use the quantity millisieverts. And so based on your body part, it could be anywhere from 1 to 2 millisieverts. I have a table here of how much, let me see, because the government doesn't want you, the U.S. government doesn't want you going over 1 millisievert a year. But if you have these scans, or if you work in jobs that have exposure to radiation, we understand the range widens. But these CAT scans can range anywhere from like a head CT to 1 to 2 millisievert to a whole body scan 10 to 20 millisieverts. Now, they used to come up with numbers saying don't have more than 10 a year, don't have more than, they took that down. I don't think we have a limit of how many CTs. We do try to minimize in the medical field the amount of CTs you get. We don't want you to just be CTing for fun, saying, well, I watched this movie and there, somebody had a tumor, so I want to check to see if I have a tumor and do a scan. Now we have CT calcium scoring. There are so many indications to use a CAT scan that, yes, there is that potential where it could be overprescribed. But these CAT scans are life-saving. Sorry, I don't know what's happening. Every time I eat, it has to come out. I apologize. So what this latest study has found, all right, and let me kind of read this to you. This is being reported by Daily Mail, is out of California. They said researchers found that CT scans could be emitting unsafe levels of radiation, actually increasing our risk of developing cancer. Now, in 2009, researchers estimated high doses of radiation from CT scans were responsible for 2% of all cancers, or causing 30,000 cancers a year. So the researchers looked at CT scans performed in California from 2018 to 2020 and found that 103,000 CT radiation-induced cancers were projected to result from the scans over the course of the lifetime of people exposed. Now, that doesn't mean it caused cancer. This is something they are projecting. It's a mathematical model, so we need to be careful. Last thing I want people thinking is they go and get a CAT scan and now they're going to get cancer. But the authors discuss, and I've heard health officials discuss this as well, how we should minimize the number of scans we're doing. Well, if you want to minimize the number of scans prescribed, you know who you need to get to the table are the lawyers, the malpractice lawyers. Doctors are not going to stop ordering CAT scans if they are going to be sued and lose their license for missing illness or failure to diagnose. And you see, there's always this disconnect. We want to save money in medicine. We want to prevent unnecessary tests. We want to do the barest minimum to save money and do what needs to be done to help the patient and not put the patient at risk. But nobody commends you for, yay, you saved the patient money. Yay, you saved the patient from radiation. But boy, do you get nailed when you didn't find the tumor. The person was right in front of you with cancer. You didn't order the test. That malpractice prosecuting attorney will make you look like the biggest idiot, make you look completely incompetent, cause you to lose your license because you didn't order the scan and find the tumor. Now, what's supposed to protect medical professionals is standard of care. And the standard of care is constantly evolving. Depends on what the United States, the USPSTF, the United States Preventative Services Task Force recommends. It depends on what the American Cancer Society recommends. It depends on the American Heart Association, all these doctor associations. And if you say, well, standard of care says to not do the CT, the malpractice lawyer could throw a big hole in that, saying, but he was high risk. He had a family history, or he was high risk for heart attack. He was over 40 years old. So now your standard of care is to do the scan. So you're like, well, what is it? And so, I trained at a time when doctors were being sued left and right. And so when I was in training, all these doctors that had gotten sued, while it was teaching me how not to get sued. And they said, you order the damn test. In fact, there was an oncologist I trained under, and for lung cancer, he said, x-ray them twice a year, not just once a year. Now we could CAT scan former smokers, but insurance would, at the time only allow chest x-rays to start for screening. And he said, I don't care what insurance says, do it twice a year. They could pay out of pocket, but people who smoke are more inclined for lung cancer. You don't want to miss the lung cancer. I trained under a gynecologist who said, you ultrasound everyone's ovaries. If they at all have pelvic, there's so many reasons to do it. Do it. Why? Well, because he got sued for missing an ovarian cancer. So all these doctors got sued. Insurance companies pulled out, like St. Paul. And if you had a lawsuit on your record, you couldn't get a new insurance. Thank God I've never had a lawsuit, a medical malpractice claim. So I was able to get on new insurance when these companies pulled out. But that's one of the reasons why CAT scans were used, because one of the biggest things doctors get nailed for isn't cutting off the wrong leg. That's rare. It's failure to diagnose or delay of diagnosis. So if somebody is having recurrent sore throats and you're just online giving them antibiotics for presumed strep, and they actually have throat cancer, they'll sue and they'll win because you failed to diagnose. You didn't send them to an ENT. You didn't do a scan. So if you want to save money and you want to minimize radiation, then you need to get the malpractice lawyers on board. And you need to come up with ways where doctors will not get sued if they do miss something. Now, me, I don't want to miss anything. If there's a chance that you have a tumor, I want to flip and order the test, because the sooner we find this, the better. Our cure for cancer is the cure to cancer is catching it early. We have a cure for cancer, whether it's cutting it out, whether it's medications, but we cure cancer all the time. Everybody says, nobody wants to reveal the cure for cancer. Depending on the type of cancer, it's a different medication, it's a different protocol. But the one thing I have seen that is as close to cure as anything else is catching it early. These grade 0 breast cancers, these early dysplastic polyps in the colon, these atypical nevi on your skin. All right. If we look at cancer granularly as a change in a cell that's not a normal cell, we cure cancer all the time. But we can only do that if we catch the sucker early. And if we don't catch it early, it grows and grows to the point where now you have it metastatic and now it's harder to treat. So, what's the answer? Well, the answer is, you have to justify why you're doing the test. I do not know of any doctor personally that will order a scan on you for poops and giggles. They won't do that. If you walk in saying, hi, I want to make sure, I have nothing wrong with me because I have a wedding coming up, do your best. They're not going to just order random CAT scans because insurance wants to know why. People get very mad that on telemedicine we can't order CAT scans. And I explain to them it's because the insurance won't pay for it. Insurance wants to know what we're scanning and why. And then is it justified? Should they pay for it? So it's really hard for a doctor to just order tests just for poops and giggles. But I got to tell you, I think we might be under ordering these CAT scans. When you hear these people are in cancer remission and then all of a sudden the cancer has spread and grown to other parts of the body within weeks, maybe we do need to scan more. But definitely talk to your medical provider about the millisieverts and your risk. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So some questions I've gotten over the years is some of your listeners, some of you had been victims of assault, rape, and you have a daughter and you have a son. How do you protect them? How do you caution them? How do you not project your fear and traumatization on them? And we've spoken about that before. But one thing that parents are really struggling with now is the issue with these bathrooms that are unisex. I mean, in Europe, you share bathrooms with men. I was at the Castle of Versailles and looking around the gardens, and it was a male-female bathroom. I loved it because I could go with my kids. I go, yay, we all go pee-pee together, yay. And they're like, God, Mom, leave me alone. But parents are kind of struggling with how do we protect our girls, give them a sense of caution, give them a sense of, show them the red flags of what could possibly you think be a friendly and then turn into a non-friendly. How do you approach the schools and the tolerance required as it pertains to transgender females who are biological males in the bathroom? So, I've said this before. Every transgender individual I've known, I have felt completely safe around. Where the danger is not the transgender population, it's the people faking it. The people faking it, and there are tons of predators out there, those are the ones that I fear. And so, a few years back, we spoke about how some families have this anti-man approach when they're trying to train their daughters how to avoid becoming victims of rape and assault. They're like, well, don't trust any man. If you see a man, don't go by a man. Get away from man. That's not the way to do things, because I love men and I love having men in my life and I love working around men. And yes, I've been assaulted, but there's a better way to protect your child than to just have an anti-man approach. But the reason why we're seeing a lot of parents speak out and are concerned about the, biological men in the locker rooms and bathrooms is one thing that parents rely on is the safe space and the red flags. And so a red flag, prior to all the controversy, a red flag is if there's a male in the bathroom. Okay, if you have to go to a bathroom and you see there's a male, or you're looking under the stalls and you see hairy legs and Air Jordans or whatever, and you're like, I don't think that's a girl, and they could be hiding out, you leave. And now it's more, well, no, anybody could use the bathroom however they need to use the bathroom. But bathrooms were for years a big source of, that's where women were separated from their man. So going to the bathroom was one of the most dangerous places for assault, rape, abduction, burglary, because you have to separate from your man to go to the female bathroom. Men can't go into the female bathrooms. That's why girls always go in pairs to the bathroom. Will you go to the bathroom with me? I don't want to go to the bathroom with you. Okay, it smells in there, and I really don't want to hear what you have to do. It's not about that. It's safety. They don't want to walk to the bathroom alone. They want to know that somebody has their back in the bathroom. And so this is something that women have taught their daughters and their granddaughters and their great-granddaughters, that you need to be careful, because that's where assault can happen. You're in a vulnerable position. You're peeing. You're disrobed. You're not thinking about, flight or fright, because your parasympathetic nervous system is kicking in for you to pee or defecate or do whatever. And so it's a very vulnerable place. And so, if you do have a daughter, I have sons, so I gave them warnings about strangers and don't talk to strangers. I don't care if it's a woman that's coming up to you saying, help me with my puppy. Don't go to a stranger, because there's abductions that happen. But, I didn't have a daughter. And if I had a daughter, I would really have to balance how much we love men in our lives, how wonderful men can be, but how some of them could be predators, even women, and how you need to be careful. And so, the advice I would always recommend, that you give your daughter is make sure they're always alone, and not just in pairs, because sometimes that other person they're with wants to hook up with somebody or separate. So make sure there's always a large group. I don't know what happened to this young pre-med student when she went to the Dominican Republic. That's heartbreaking, but because we know that people separate. So then the next thing is if you are alone, this is how you protect yourself. Do you have a rape whistle? Do you have your phone that you can hit for emergency? Do you have a knife on you? Do you have mace, pepper spray? And I would teach my daughter how to protect themselves and do the biggest fight. When I was in school, and I went to 12 different schools, but one of the schools had an amazing program where they taught you where if, God forbid, you're being attacked, you scream fire. If you scream rape, people are too afraid to come over. But if you scream fire, everybody wants to see the fire. And everybody's worried about their own building. So everybody will come out to look. Scream fire. Pee on the person. Gag yourself and throw up on the person. Do whatever you have to do. Although I really don't want you aspirating, so I wouldn't recommend that. But that's what I was taught, where you just be as disgusting as possible so that they get grossed out and they leave. And they don't try and continue the act of assault. But, we have these red flags where if you see somebody where they're not supposed to be, that's your spidey sense. Get away. And a big foundation of that were the restrooms, were the locker rooms. If there's somebody hanging out by the bathroom, what's interesting, my son, now when I go to the bathroom, he'll actually wait outside by the bathroom to make sure I'm okay. So that's very... I think his girlfriend taught him that, because I would just run to the bathroom myself. And I think he's learning that bathrooms could be dangerous places. And again, it's not that they're a dangerous place because of a transgender. I have no fear. I have transgender individuals in the family. I have no fear of a true transgender individual assaulting me in the bathroom. But what I do fear is somebody pretending. And if predators are seeing, hey, this is my way in, I could get into the girls' bathroom just by pretending to be a girl. Now that's an issue. And so I understand why parents are a little nervous. I understand why because, where then are your safe spaces? I mean, because girls can't always have a guy with them all the time. Look at that, how that illegal immigrant was raping a girl and she was with, I think, a guy friend and he couldn't do anything. There's a lot of vulnerabilities, and you won't be able to protect your kids from all of them. But a lot of the main teaching points is don't be alone. Make sure somebody is with you. Don't pee in the men's bathroom. Stay in the girls' bathroom if you're a girl. Try to have either a weapon or know how to protect yourself. Don't become a target. Don't have the shortest skirt in the room, and you want to blend in so that predators don't decide to choose you. But there is now this kind of incongruency on how do we teach girls the red flags? And if parents feel that their daughters are going to let their guard down because they're like, oh, that's just a transgender female, I'm good, they're going to be very vulnerable. And I'm telling you, these predators are already figuring this stuff out, if not already. In fact, that father at that Virginia school board a couple years ago said his daughter was attacked by somebody who pretended to be transgender in the girls' bathroom. So what I think is going to happen are single-use bathrooms. Single stall. I told you I was at a American Cancer Society event at a local restaurant bar. And I went to look for the bathroom, and there was a security guard standing there, and there were just all these single stalls that a male or female could use. I like that idea. You open the door, don't go in if somebody's in there, and then it's just your place. And that might be the answer to all the controversy, but keep those questions coming. We'll answer them the best we can. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com. where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.